Captain Alan Wright stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant and looked at the main screen. His hands were tight fists at his sides. The blue-skinned alien on the screen had just finished speaking, and Wright was trying hard not to show his anger. "Thank you for your assessment, Ambassador," Wright said. His voice was calm, but everyone on the bridge could feel his tension. The Xeraxian ambassador gave a small bow. His tall, thin body moved with fluid grace. "I merely speak truth, Captain." "Your vessel is, how do you humans say it?" "Cute." Lieutenant Paul Newman at the communications station coughed to hide his reaction. Wright shot him a warning look. "Cute was not what our engineers were aiming for," Wright said. "Of course not." The ambassador's smile showed rows of small, perfect teeth. Quaint might be a better word. A charming little vessel. Good for moving cargo between your planets, perhaps, or taking tourists to see your moon. But surely you don't think of this craft as a military vessel. Wright took a deep breath. "The Defiant may not look like much to you, Ambassador, but she's got it where it counts." The ambassador's smooth blue face showed nothing but polite doubt. "I'm sure she does, Captain. We in the Galactic Confederation welcome your enthusiasm. But please remember your place. Earth is very new to space travel compared to the rest of us. You are here to learn, not to teach." The screen went dark as the ambassador ended the call. Wright let out a long breath. "Well, that was fun," said Commander Olivia Martinez as she walked up beside him. Her dark eyes were sharp with anger. "Did he just pat us on the head and tell us to sit at the kids' table?" "Pretty much," Wright said. He turned to face his crew. 20 faces looked back at him. Some looked angry. Some looked hurt. All looked determined. "Listen up," Wright said. "That won't be the last time someone talks down to us. The Confederation took us in because they needed our planet's location, not because they respect us. They think our ship is a joke." "It's not fair," said young Ensign Ryan Cooper from his post at Sensors. "We built the Defiant with our own hands. We didn't have their fancy tech to work with." "No, we didn't," Wright agreed. "And that's exactly why they don't get it. They've all been using the same tech for so long, they've forgotten how to think differently." Chief Engineer Susan Garcia spoke up from where she was checking a panel near the back of the bridge. "Their ships all look the same, Captain. Same designs, same weapons, same shields. They've been at peace so long they've stopped growing." Wright nodded. "And they think our different approach means we're backward." "Let them think that," Martinez said with a fierce smile. "It just means they'll never see us coming if things go bad." Wright walked slowly around the bridge, looking at each crew member in turn. "The Defiant doesn't look like their ships. Our weapons aren't as strong. Our engines aren't as fast. But we have things they don't have." "Like what, sir?" asked Cooper. "Creativity, determination, and the human ability to face impossible odds and still find a way to win," Wright said. "For now, we smile and nod when they talk down to us. We watch and we learn, and we keep improving our ship in our own way." He stopped at the center of the bridge again and looked at the main screen, now showing the massive Confederation station where they were docked. Dozens of sleek alien ships moved around it. The Defiant was smaller than most of them, with its odd angles and visible retrofits. "One day," Wright said quietly, "they'll need what we bring to the table. And on that day, they'll learn that mocking Earth was a very bad idea." Martinez grinned. "I can't wait to see their faces when that happens." "Me neither, Commander," Wright said. "Until then, we have work to do. Garcia, how are those engine modifications coming along?" "Almost there, Captain. Another day, maybe two." Wright nodded. "Good, because I have a feeling we're going to need every advantage we can get, and sooner than the Confederation thinks." Chief Engineer Susan Garcia had not slept in 32 hours. The blue light from the ship's schematics cast strange shadows on her tired face. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and empty coffee cups lined her workstation. "Pass me the plasma calibrator," she said without looking up. Her assistant, Eric Johnson placed the tool in her outstretched hand. "You should rest, Chief. You've been at this since yesterday." Garcia shook her head as she made another adjustment to the Defiant's unusual cooling system. "No time. We dock at Confederation Station Alpha in 10 hours. I want these improvements working by then." Eric looked at the schematics floating in the air between them. "The Confederation engineers will just laugh at us again. Last time, that tall green guy said our cooling system was charmingly primitive." Garcia smiled for the first time in hours. "Let them laugh. They don't get it yet." "Get what?" "The problem isn't our power output," she explained, pointing to a section of the ship's design. "It's that we're thinking like them. Or rather, they think we're trying to think like them and failing." She stood up and stretched her back. "Look, every ship in the Confederation uses the same basic designs, same materials, same weapons, same defenses. They've been doing it that way for 1,000 years. Because it works," Eric said. "Because it works against others who fight the same way," Garcia corrected him. "Their ships are all built to defend against the same kinds of attacks. Their sensors all look for the same energy signatures." She pointed to the cooling system she had been modifying. "This cooling system they laugh at. It gives off a heat signature that their targeting systems can't properly read. They think it's inefficient. What they don't realize is that it's purposefully designed that way." Eric's eyes widened as he understood. "You're building in weaknesses that aren't really weaknesses." "Exactly. The Defiant isn't built according to their standards because we didn't have their technology when we designed it. So we adapted. We improvised." She gestured to another part of the ship's design. "These outdated fusion reactors. I've modified them to produce energy patterns their sensors don't recognize." A voice came from the doorway, "Making us invisible in plain sight." Garcia and Eric turned to see Commander Olivia Martinez standing there. She walked into the engineering bay, looking at the schematics with approval. "Not invisible," Garcia clarified. "Just confusing. Their systems are calibrated to detect specific things in specific ways. We're outside those parameters." Martinez nodded. "Like fighting someone who's trained only in one style of combat. They don't know what to do when you use moves they've never seen." "Exactly," Garcia said. "Captain Wright understands this. It's why he's encouraged me to keep pushing in this direction." Martinez walked around the holographic display, studying the ship's unusual systems. "While you're making us technically unpredictable, I'm training the crew to be tactically unpredictable." She smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "My tactical team runs drills no Confederation ship would ever try. They think we're reckless, dangerous." "Are we?" Eric asked. "Damn right we are," Martinez said. "But there's method to our madness. They fight by rules established over centuries of peace. Regulations, protocols, standard responses." Garcia nodded in understanding. "And we fight like humans always have. Adapting, evolving, finding the edge." "Exactly," Martinez said. "They think we're harmless. That's our greatest advantage." She checked the time. "I have to go. Captain's called a senior staff meeting in 10 minutes. We're getting new orders from Earth Command." Garcia raised an eyebrow. "Does the Confederation know about these orders?" Martinez's smile grew. "What do you think?" After she left, Eric looked worried. "Are we going against Confederation directives? Won't that get us in trouble?" Garcia returned to her work on the cooling system. "Probably. But something's coming, Eric. The captain knows it. Earth Command knows it. The Confederation has been at peace so long they've forgotten how to see threats until they're right in front of them." "What kind of threats?" Garcia sighed and looked up at the young engineer. "The kind that won't fight by their nice, civilized rules. And when that happens, the Defiant won't seem so primitive anymore." The emergency alarm woke Admiral Harold Dawson from a deep sleep. He grabbed his uniform and was dressed before the second ring ended. As Earth's representative to the Confederation Council, he had been given quarters in the diplomatic wing of Central Station. Now he rushed through the curved hallways toward the council chamber. Alien diplomats from 20 different worlds hurried in the same direction. None of them spoke to him. After 6 months on the station, Dawson was used to being ignored. Earth was the newest member of the Galactic Confederation, and most species viewed humans as primitive newcomers who had barely figured out space travel. The council chamber was already full when he arrived. The circular room had seats arranged by membership age. Earth's seat was in the very back, almost hidden behind a large column. High Admiral Zex of the Tyranny stood at the center podium. His golden scales shimmered under the lights as he activated a large holographic display. 3 hours ago, we lost contact with Outpost Sigma 7, he announced. 2 hours ago, we lost contact with Outposts Delta 3 and Omega 9. Frightened murmurs filled the room. Dawson leaned forward. Those outposts were all on the outer border of Confederation space. Long-range scans show this, Zex continued. The holographic display changed to show 3 destroyed space stations. Dawson felt his stomach tighten. They weren't just damaged. They were completely blown apart. The attacks came without warning, Zex said. We have identified the attackers as the Risani. More murmurs, louder now. Dawson had read about the Risani in his diplomatic briefings. They were an aggressive species from the outer arm of the galaxy. The Confederation had signed a peace treaty with them 50 years ago, but relations had always been tense. They are using attack patterns we have not seen before, Zex continued. Our standard defense protocols failed to stop them. The Plutonian delegate stood. What forces do we have in the area? The Third Fleet is moving into position, Zex answered, but they are 6 hours away. Intelligence suggests the Risani will attack Centauri Prime next. Dawson felt a chill. Centauri Prime was only 2 systems away from Earth. We must send more ships immediately, said the Zeraxian ambassador, the same one who had mocked the U.S. Defiant. All available ships are being deployed according to standard protocol, Zex replied. Dawson thought about Captain Wright and the Defiant, currently patrolling near the edge of Earth's solar system. They weren't part of the Confederation fleet, and they didn't follow standard protocols. Without thinking about it, Dawson stood up. As the newest member, Earth was expected to remain silent in these meetings. Earth can help, he said loudly. The chamber went silent. Every alien eye turned to look at him. The U.S. Defiant can be at Centauri Prime in 4 hours, Dawson continued. We can gather intelligence before the Third Fleet arrives. A moment of silence, then laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults direct at an eager child who doesn't understand a situation. Your enthusiasm is noted, Admiral Dawson, said Zex kindly. But this is not a job for observation vessels. The Defiant is a warship, Dawson said firmly. The Plutonian delegate snorted. With all respect, what your people call a warship, we would barely classify as a scout vessel. We are not asking Earth to fight, the Zeraxian ambassador added. Your world has not even been a spacefaring civilization for 2 full centuries. The Risani would destroy your vessel in moments. Dawson kept his face calm, though anger burned inside him. The Defiant has capabilities you haven't seen. Perhaps, Zex said, clearly trying to move on. But we will handle this according to Confederation protocols. Earth may contribute support resources as needed. Dawson sat down, but he didn't give up. As the council continued to debate, he quietly used his personal communicator to send a message directly to Earth Command, bypassing Confederation channels. Request permission to deploy Defiant to Centauri Prime for recon on Risani threat. Confederation expects us to fail. Captain Wright will not fail. The answer came back less than 5 minutes later. Permission granted. Defiant already en route. Additional instructions. Gather intel. Avoid engagement if possible, but use your judgment if engagement becomes necessary. Earth stands with you. Dawson smiled to himself as the council continued its circular debate. The Confederation had no idea what humans were capable of when underestimated. They were about to find out. Captain Alan Wright sat in his command chair, watching the stars streak by on the main screen. The U.S. Defiant had been pushing its engines hard for 3 hours. They were now deep in Confederation space, heading toward Centauri Prime. "Status report," Wright called out. Lieutenant Paul Newman looked up from his console. "We'll reach Centauri Prime in 48 minutes, Captain. No sign of Ursani ships on long-range sensors yet." Wright nodded. "Martinez, what's our combat readiness?" Commander Olivia Martinez stood at the tactical station. "All weapons systems are online. Shield modifications are holding stable. Garcia's new cooling system is working perfectly. We're running silent on Confederation standard scans." "Good," Wright said. "Keep us that way. I want to see the Ursani before they see us." He turned to his communications officer. "Any response from Confederation Command about our arrival?" Communications specialist Patricia Kim shook her head. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "They sent one message ordering us to return to Earth space. When we didn't acknowledge, they stopped trying." Wright smiled slightly. "They think we're being reckless. Let them think that." Kim's console suddenly lit up with new signals. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions, not Confederation standard. They must be Ursani. Can you decode them?" Wright asked. Kim closed her eyes, listening through her earpiece. The bridge went quiet. "Yes," she said after a moment. "They're not using Confederation encryption. The patterns are different, but I can follow them." Wright raised an eyebrow. "You can understand their language?" Kim nodded. "It's similar to some Earth languages in structure. Our translation software is adapting faster than Confederation systems would. The Ursani don't know we can hear them." She listened again, her face growing serious. "Captain, they're planning to hit Centauri Prime in 2 hours. They have a flagship with some kind of new weapon system." "Details on the weapon?" Martins asked. "Something that disables shields," Kim said. "They're saying Confederation standard shields will fail completely when hit with their new weapon." Wright thought for a moment. "Our shields aren't Confederation standard." "No, sir," Martinez said with a smile. "Garcia made sure of that." Wright turned to his tactical officer. "Ensign Ryan Cooper, are you detecting any Ursani vessels nearby?" Cooper checked his sensors. "Yes, sir. Small ship, probably a scout, at the edge of our scanning range." "Can we intercept without being detected?" Wright asked. Martinez studied her tactical display. "If we use the approach pattern we tested last month, we can get close using the asteroid field for cover." Wright knew this was against his orders. Earth Command had told him to gather intelligence only, not to engage. The Confederation would be furious if they found out. But if they could capture a scout ship. "Set intercept course," Wright ordered. "We need to know more about that weapon before it hits Centauri Prime." The Defiant changed course, slipping between asteroids, using their unusual shapes for cover. Garcia's modified engines left no energy trail that Ursani sensors could detect. "We're in position," Martins reported 15 minutes later. "Scout ship is just ahead. They don't see us." "Weapons status?" Wright asked. "Ready. But if we fire, they'll know we're here." Wright nodded. "We're not going to fire. At least not conventionally." He hit the intercom. "Garcia, is your tractor beam modification ready?" Garcia's voice came through the speaker. "Ready, Captain. But I've never tested it on a real ship." "Today's the test," Wright said. "Cooper, on my mark, I want you to target their engine section with the modified tractor beam. Just like we practiced." "Yes, sir," Cooper said nervously. "Now," Wright ordered. A thin beam shot from the Defiant, too weak to pull the scout ship, but strong enough to cause a power fluctuation in its engines. The scout ship's lights flickered. "Their systems are resetting," Cooper reported. "Engine shutdown in progress." Kim jammed their communications. "Martinez, get a boarding team ready." "Captain," Martinez said quietly, "if we do this, we're directly disobeying Confederation protocols about first combat engagement." Wright stood up from his chair. "We're not engaging in combat. We're conducting an inspection of a vessel in distress. He smiled grimly. And if we happen to learn something about their weapons while helping them, that's just good fortune. The Confederation won't see it that way, Martins warned. The Confederation isn't here, Wright replied. We are. And I'm not letting that weapon reach Centauri Prime if we can stop it. Dr. Nathan Powell rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the data on his screen. For the past 18 hours, he had been analyzing the information sent back from the Defiant. Captain Wright and his crew had successfully boarded the Rissani scout ship and downloaded critical technical specifications before letting the vessel go on its way. The Rissani crew never even knew humans had been on board. Tell me you found something, said General Linda Reyes. She stood behind Powell in the underground Earth Defense Headquarters. I have, Powell said, pointing to his screen. And it's not what anyone expected. Powell was not what most people pictured when they thought of a military scientist. With his messy gray hair and worn sweater, he looked more like a college professor. The Confederation research teams had rejected him twice for being too unorthodox in his approaches. The Rissani aren't using new technology, Powell explained. They're using old technology in new ways, ways that the Confederation forgot about centuries ago when they standardized their systems. Reyes leaned closer. Explain. The Confederation has been using the same shield technology for over 500 years. It's incredibly advanced, but it all works on the same principles. Powell pulled up a diagram. The Rissani weapon simply exploits a weakness that's always been there, like finding a back door that nobody bothered to lock, Reyes said. Exactly. Powell nodded. And the reason nobody locked it is because everyone agreed not to use that door. The Confederation ships all used the same designs, the same defenses. They'd been at peace so long they forgot about older ways of fighting. But Earth ships don't use standard Confederation shields, Ray said. Powell smiled. No, we don't. We couldn't. We didn't have access to their technology when we built the Defiant, so we had to improvise. Our shields are technically inferior, but they work on completely different principles. So the Rissani weapon won't affect our ships. It will cause some disruption, but not total failure like it will with Confederation vessels. Powell stood up and paced the room. This is bigger than just shields. The entire Rissani attack strategy relies on the Confederation's predictability. Powell pulled up more data from the Defiant. Look at these attack patterns. They're deliberately targeting weaknesses that exist in all Confederation ships because they all use the same designs. It's like they've been studying Confederation technology for years, looking for flaws. Ray studied the attack simulations. Can we counter this? We already have, in a way, Powell said. The Defiant's unusual design and systems make it naturally resistant to some of these attacks, but we can do more. He turned to face the general. If we share this with the Confederation, they won't have time to redesign their ships, but we could quickly retrofit our Earth fleet with countermeasures. Our fleet. Rise laughed without humor. We have 7 ships, Doctor. The Defiant is our flagship. The rest are even smaller. 7 ships that might actually survive this attack, Powell pointed out. Reyes was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded sharply. Do it. Get your team working on those countermeasures immediately. I'll talk to the Joint Chiefs. 4 hours later, Powell watched from the command center as Earth's small fleet was mobilized. The Joint Chiefs had made a bold decision. Instead of reporting their findings to the Confederation, they were sending their ships directly to Centauri Prime. The Confederation ordered us to stay out of this, one of Powell's assistants said nervously. They did, Powell agreed, because they think we'd just get in the way. A young engineer looked up from her workstation. Will our ships really make a difference? There are only 7 of them. Powell watched as the fleet status board showed all 7 Earth vessels preparing for faster-than-light travel. They were small, unusual-looking ships by Confederation standards, but they were crewed by humans who had spent their entire history adapting and overcoming. Do you know what humans have always been good at? Powell asked. Surviving against the odds, finding ways to win when everything seems impossible. He smiled at the status board. 7 ships might be enough, especially when no one expects them to matter. The space around Centauri Prime was filled with the broken remains of Confederation ships. Admiral Vox of the Confederation Third Fleet watched in horror as another cruiser exploded under Rassani fire. His massive command ship shook as enemy weapons struck its shields. Admiral, shield strength down to 30%, called his second in command. Pull back to defense position 3, Vox ordered. Concentrate all fire on the Rassani flagship. The battle had been going for just 2 hours, but already half the Confederation fleet was destroyed or disabled. The Rassani ships moved in strange patterns, ignoring standard battle formations. Their weapons seemed to know exactly where to hit for maximum damage. Admiral, our shields are failing across the fleet, reported his tactical officer. The Rassani weapon affects all our vessels the same way. Vox felt a cold fear in his stomach. The Confederation had not fought a real war in over a century. They had grown too comfortable, too predictable. Sir, new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. Vox looked at the sensor display. 7 small ships had just arrived. He didn't recognize their configuration at first. Then he realized. Earth vessels, he said in disbelief. What are they doing here? His communications officer looked up. Message from the Earth ship Defiant. Admiral. Put it through, Vox said. Captain Alan Wright's face appeared on the screen. The human looked calm despite the chaos around them. Admiral Vox, this is Captain Wright of the U.S. Defiant. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Vox was torn between relief and anger. Captain, we ordered Earth to contribute support resources, not combat vessels. We brought medical supplies too, Wright said with a slight smile. But first we need to deal with those Rassani ships. Before Vox could reply, Wright ended the transmission. Vox watched in disbelief as the 7 Earth ships moved into a formation that made no sense by Confederation tactical standards. They appeared to be deliberately exposing their flanks, violating every principle of fleet engagement that Vox knew. What are they doing? His tactical officer asked. That formation leaves them completely vulnerable. They're going to get themselves killed, Vox said, but he couldn't look away. The Earth ships moved with unpredictable patterns, using the debris field from destroyed Confederation vessels as cover. The Rassani ships fired at them, but seemed to have trouble targeting the small, agile vessels. On the bridge of the Defiant, Wright watched his tactical display closely. Status of the Rassani flagship, he asked. Commander Martinez checked her readings. They're preparing to fire their main weapon at the Confederation command ship. 1 hit will take down their shields completely. Not today, Wright said. Execute attack pattern Omega. The Defiant and 2 other Earth ships suddenly changed course, diving toward the Rassani flagship from 3 different directions. The other 4 Earth vessels launched small fighter craft, something the Confederation had stopped using centuries ago. Fighter Squadron Alpha, ready for deployment, came Lieutenant Kelly Rodriguez's voice over the comm. You know the target, Wright replied. Hit their weapon emitters and get out fast. Yes, sir. Wright watched as the small fighters darted between the capital ships. The Rassani seemed confused by this tactic, their defensive fire scattered and ineffective against the tiny, quick targets. Sir, Martinez reported with surprise in her voice, the Rassani targeting systems are having trouble locking onto our ships and fighters. Garcia's modifications are working. The Earth vessel's unusual heat signatures and energy patterns were confusing the Rassani systems just as they had confused Confederation sensors. Wright nodded. Kim, open a channel to all Earth ships. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Wright. The Rassani expect us to fight like the Confederation. We won't. Use every trick in the book. Do the unexpected. Show them what humans can do. As the Defiant banked sharply and fired its main weapons at the Rassani flagship, Wright felt a moment of fierce pride. The Confederation might have mocked Earth's ships as primitive and dangerous, but sometimes primitive and dangerous was exactly what you needed. "Sir," Martins reported with a grin, "the Risani flagship is adjusting its position to deal with our attack. They're moving away from the Confederation fleet." "Good," Wright said. "Now let's show them why nobody should have mocked Earth's dangerous little ships." Lieutenant Kelly Rodriguez gripped her fighter controls tightly as she led her squadron through the chaos of battle. Her small craft darted between massive capital ships, avoiding enemy fire by mere meters. "Keep it tight, Alpha Squadron," she called to her pilots. "Remember your training. Humans are too unpredictable. That's our strength today." The Confederation had abandoned fighter craft centuries ago in favor of automated drones. They thought humans were taking an unnecessary risk by putting pilots in small ships. What they didn't understand was that human unpredictability was exactly what made the fighters so effective. "Target in sight," said her wingman, Lieutenant Greg Hoffman. "Risani flagship's main weapon emitter dead ahead." "I see it," Rodriguez replied. "All fighters, attack pattern Delta. Hit and scatter." The 12 Earth fighters broke from their tight formation, each approaching the target from a different angle. The Risani point defense systems tried to track them, but the small ships moved in ways that defied prediction algorithms. Rodriguez felt her fighter shake as a near miss scorched her port wing. She rolled the craft and dived toward the massive weapon emitter on the Risani flagship. It was preparing to fire, a weapon that could disable every Confederation shield in range. "This one's for Earth," she whispered, and fired her missiles. 11 other fighters did the same from different angles. The combined attack overwhelmed the Risani point defenses. Multiple explosions bloomed across the surface of the weapon emitter. "Direct hits," Hoffman shouted. "The weapon is damaged." "Don't celebrate yet," Rodriguez warned. "Pull back and regroup for another run." As her fighters retreated, the main Earth fleet moved in. The U.S. Defiant led the attack, its unusually angled hull reflecting the light of nearby explosions. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Wright watched as the Risani flagship's damaged weapon tried to fire at a Confederation cruiser. The beam was weak, only partially disabling the target's shields. "Their main weapon is damaged but still operational," Commander Martinez reported. "Our fighters heard it, but didn't destroy it." Wright nodded. "Then we need to finish the job ourselves. Garcia, are you ready down there?" Chief Engineer Garcia's voice came through the comm. "Ready, Captain. But this is going to push our systems to the limit." "It's that or watch Centauri Prime burn," Wright replied. Martinez set course directly for the Risani flagship, full speed. Martinez looked at him in surprise. "Sir, a direct approach will expose us to all their secondary weapons." "I'm counting on it," Wright said. "They'll be so focused on us, they won't see what we're really doing." The Defiant shot forward, heading straight toward the massive Risani vessel. The enemy ship turned its remaining weapons toward the approaching Earth vessel. "They're targeting us," Martins warned. "Multiple weapons locking on." "Hold course," Wright ordered calmly. "Rodriguez, is your squadron in position?" "Yes, sir," came the fighter pilot's voice. "Ready on your mark. Garcia, divert all power to forward shields and the special package." "Done, Captain." "Package is hot and ready." The Defiant's hull began to glow as it pushed its engines beyond safety limits. The ship shuddered as Risani weapons fire impacted its shields. "Shields at 60%, Martins reported. 50%, 40%. "Almost there," Wright said. "Just a little closer." The Confederation commanders watched in horror from their ships, certain they were witnessing a suicide run. Admiral Vox couldn't look away as the tiny Earth ship charged directly at the Risani flagship. "That human is insane," Vox whispered. On the Defiant, warning alarms blared as systems began to fail under the strain. "Shields at 20%, Martinez called out. "We can't take much more of this." "Now," Wright ordered. "Garcia, activate the package." Rodriguez hit their engines. The Defiant suddenly released a strange pulse of energy, not a weapon, but a focused burst from its modified engines. The pulse hit the Rossani flagship's damaged weapon emitter just as Rodriguez's fighters struck the enemy's main engines from behind. The combination of attacks created a power surge through the Rossani ship. Energy cascaded through its systems in a way its designers never anticipated. It worked, Martin had shouted. Energy surge in their command systems. The Rossani flagship's lights flickered. Its weapons went offline. The massive ship began to drift. "Get us out of here," Wright ordered, before their systems reset. The Defiant turned sharply, its damaged hull groaning under the strain. Behind it, the Rossani flagship floated helplessly, its crew scrambling to restore power. "All Earth ships press the advantage," Wright called. "The flagship is disabled. Take out their remaining vessels." Captain Alan Wright stood in the observation lounge of Confederation Central Station. Through the large window, he could see the U.S. Defiant docked alongside much larger alien vessels. His ship looked small and battered, its hull marked with scorch marks and battle damage. But it was still there, still intact, still victorious. The door slid open behind him. Wright turned to see the Ziraxian ambassador enter, the same one who had mockingly dismissed the Defiant months earlier. "Captain," the ambassador said, his blue skin seeming paler than before, "the Confederation Council is ready for you." Wright nodded and followed the ambassador through the station's corridors. Neither spoke. The silence between them said enough. The council chamber was packed when they arrived. Representatives from every Confederation species filled the seats. When Wright entered, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Admiral Vox stood at the center podium. "Captain Alan Wright of Earth," he announced formally. "Please step forward." Wright walked to the center of the chamber. He stood tall despite his exhaustion. The battle at Centauri Prime had ended 2 days ago. The Rossani fleet had been defeated. Their flagship captured. Their invasion stopped. 3 days ago, Vox said, addressing the council, the Rossani attacked Centauri Prime with a weapon that should have destroyed our entire fleet. They had studied our standardized defenses and found a way to defeat them. By all calculations, we should have lost. He turned to Wright. Instead, 7 Earth ships, ships we had dismissed as primitive and inadequate, turned the tide of battle. Using tactics we had abandoned and technology we had deemed obsolete, they defeated an enemy that knew all our weaknesses. Murmurs filled the chamber. Wright remained silent. "Captain Wright," Vox continued, "your actions violated numerous Confederation protocols. You engaged in combat without proper authorization. You boarded an enemy vessel without filing the required documentation. You modified your ship systems without approval from Confederation engineering." The chamber grew quiet again. "And by doing so," Vox said, his voice softening, "you saved Centauri Prime and possibly the entire Confederation." A wave of applause swept through the chamber. Wright blinked in surprise. Admiral Harold Dawson stepped forward from Earth's seat in the back of the room. He carried a data pad with him. "Honored representatives," Dawson said, "in light of recent events, Earth proposes a comprehensive revision of Confederation defense protocols." He activated a holographic display that showed the U.S. Defiant alongside schematics for a new class of ships. "The Rossani nearly destroyed us because we had become predictable," Dawson explained. "We had forgotten something humans learn early. Adaptation is survival." The chamber, normally filled with debate and argument, listened in silence. "Earth does not ask to lead the Confederation," Dawson continued, "but we ask to contribute in the way we know best, by thinking differently, by finding new approaches to old problems." The council voted immediately. The proposal passed without a single objection. 3 days later, Chief Engineer Susan Garcia stood in the Defiant's engine room, surrounded by alien engineers who eagerly studied her primitive modifications. "I don't understand," one of them said. "Why use an irregular cooling pattern when a standard one is more efficient?" Garcia smiled. "Because the enemy expects the standard pattern. They program their targeting systems for it. But this. She pointed to her unusual design. This confuses them, makes them hesitate, and sometimes that hesitation is all you need. Captain Wright entered the engine room, followed by Admiral Vox. Captain, Vox said, the Confederation shipyards are ready to begin construction on the new Defiant-class vessels. We would like Chief Garcia to oversee the implementation of her systems. Garcia looked at Wright in surprise. He nodded with a smile. The thing about humans, Garcia told the alien engineers as she prepared to show them her designs, is that we've never believed in no-win scenarios. There's always another approach, another angle, another way to solve a problem. Even when the odds seem impossible, asked one of the engineers. Especially then, Wright said. That's when humans are at their best. Admiral Vox looked around the unusual engine room of the once mocked vessel. The Galactic Confederation has existed for over 1,000 years, he said quietly. Perhaps it took Earth to remind us how we survived so long in the first place. Outside the viewport, stars shone in the darkness. The U.S. Defiant, the dangerous little ship that turned an Armada to ashes, prepared for its next mission. No longer mocked, but respected. No longer dismissed, but studied. No longer alone, but leading the way forward.